This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay. Good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Sefer Daniel, Perek Beis, Pasuk Chafei. So we learned how after Nevuchadnezzar exhausted all of his sorcerers and magicians and necromancers, he wanted to kill out all the Chachmei Bavel. Whereupon Daniel davens to Hashem, and Hashem reveals to him the meaning of Nevuchadnezzar's dream. And Daniel goes to Aryech, the chief executioner, and he asks to be taken to Nevuchadnezzar. So that's what we're up to. Perek Beis Pasuk Chafei. Edayin. Edayin means us, then. Aryech, the chief executioner, Aryech, his behala, with great bahala, with quickness, Rashi says. Hanhel le Daniel, he's machnes Daniel, he brings Daniel in, kadam malka, before the king. V'chein amar le, and then he says to him, in other words, Aryech says to the king, Di hashkaches gavar, I found a man, min b'nei galusa di Yehud, from among the exiles of Judah, of Yehuda, di fishra lemalka Yehoida, that the interpretation he will make known to the king. In other words, I got the guy.
Didn't Nebuchadnezzar know him already from the kids that were in training that were supposed to serve him?
Yeah.
He picked them out, so why does he have to introduce him?
So, right. Last week we said over from the Alshech that Nebuchadnezzar did not go to Daniel, because even though Daniel was the wisest, he didn't have experience in this area. Or this was something supernatural, and Daniel has only showed his prowess in intellectual feats. Then we also spoke at the Pshat of the Rabbag that this was before the 3 years of training for Daniel were over, but that's not the mainstream view. Okay. Chavav, and then we also said a Pshat, we said there's a difficulty with it, but it could be that since Daniel was the obvious man for the job, so if he didn't step forward, obviously he couldn't help him. Okay, and we questioned that Pshat. Fine. Pasuk Chavav. Ane Malka v'Amar Daniel, the king spoke up and said to Daniel, Di Shemei Belshazzar. Remember from Perek Aleph, Daniel's name was Belshazzar. Who gave him that name? Nevuchadnezzar. He said, Ha'isach kahel. Do you have the ability lehoyi da'usani, to make known to me Chelma, the dream, Di Chazes, that I saw, Fisher, in the interpretation?
So wait a minute, the fact that Nebuchadnezzar calls him Belshazzar, which is the name that he gave to Daniel, would kind of indicate that he actually knew who he was.
Right. Well,
because he knew, and he remembered the name that he
that
gave
name
him.
He gave him.
Maybe he didn't go to him because his expertise wasn't in these kinds of misers.
Yeah. Well,
But the other one about that he was like a rookie, he didn't have anything to do with him, doesn't hold, because he knew his name.
Belshazzar was the name he gave him immediately when he sensed there's something with him. But the Malbim says the fact that he's invoking that special name meant that, he had some hope that he could help him out. Okay. Pasuk Chav Zayin. Ane Daniel Kadam Malka v'Yamar. So Daniel speaks up before the king and he says, Raza di Malka Shael. This secret that the king asks, Lachakimin, there are no wise men. Ushvin. Who remembers what's an Ushvin? Astrologers. Yeah? Chartumin, necromancers. Gozrin, demoners. Yachlin lahachavaya lamaka, could interpret for the king. In other words, the Malbim explains what Daniel is trying to tell Nebuchadnezzar is, you really should not be killing out all the wise men of Bavel. You know why? This is above their pay scale. This is not something they could possibly help you out with. Baram, however, there is someone who could help you, Nebuchadnezzar. Isai Elah Bishmaya Gali Razin. There is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. V'hoida, and he is making known Lemalka Nevuchadnezzar, to King Nevuchadnezzar. Modi lehevi, what will be be'achris yaimaya, in the end of days. Chelmach, your dream. V'chezvei reishach, and the thoughts of your head. Al mishkavach, on your bed, dinahu. is the following. In other words, what Daniel is saying to Nevuchadnezzar is that this dream is not merely some type of prophecy God is throwing into your head. Because we know God only shows someone in a dream what they were thinking about during the day. So because Nevuchadnezzar, in his waking hours, he was contemplating what will be after his demise. So therefore, what Daniel is telling Nevuchadnezzar is, because you were contemplating that eventuality, God is revealing to you what you've been worrying about. And Daniel is saying, I am going to tell you what you've been thinking about. He says, Ant Malka, you king, Rayoinach al Mishkavach Saliku. Your thoughts on your bed have risen up. Look at Rashi. Mashahayisa Mahar B'Yoim. That which you would think about during the day, Ma'yia Acharecha, what will be after you, Al Mishkav Cha'alu, has risen up onto your bed. In other words, what you've been worried about, God has revealed to you. Madi Lahevi Acharedina, what will be after you? Bigale Razaya, and he revealed the secret, Haidach, and he has let known to you, Madi Lahevi, what will be.
He's like a lot of redundancy here, no?
Well,
Charlie is
he's saying.
What you say is not.
You said to him, Hashem will reveal to you
He didn't say
in the future what you're worried about. One time, it's like several times seems to have repeated this.
That's the way they speak. That's the way they read.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that language.
That's right.
Before you're done.
We'll have to see. Let's see. So now Daniel gives a little disclaimer. And he says that I want you to know that the way that I'm able to make known to you what you've been dreaming about is not because of my personal wisdom. He says, Va'ana, and I, la v'chachma di'itai bi min kol chaya. And I, not because of the wisdom that is with me, from every living thing, Raza Dina Galili. Has this secret been revealed to me? No. I'm not any smarter than anyone else. Lahain, rather, Al Divras Difishra Lamalka Yehiduun, only so that Divras, the Davar, the matter, that the interpretation should be known to the king, V'rayone Livavach Tinda, and you should know what you've been thinking about. In other words, it's just a coincidence. God happened to tell me. Not because I'm any smarter, more intelligent than anyone else. No, God happened to pick me to be the one to relay it to you. No, but not because of my personal wisdom. Okay. So now Daniel is going to tell Nevuchadnezzar what he's been dreaming of. Okay? You ready? Fasten your seatbelts. Ant Malka, you king. Chaze Havayasa. You saw. Now this is very important.
Shulim Alechem.
Alechem Shalom. This is so quietly.
We're trying to concentrate. Ant Malka, you king. Chaze Havasa, you saw. Now the Malbim interprets this, that you saw, doesn't just mean you had a dream then. But rather more than that. Listen to how the Malbim explains it. Why is Daniel telling the king, you king? Obviously he's a king, and Nevuchadnezzar knows who he is. He knows he's the king. What he means is, Ant Malka, the reason why you saw this information is because you are the most important person in the world. You are the king. And you saw this information because you're the king. Chaze Havasa Ba'alut Salem Chad Sagi. And the Malbim explains that as Daniel is telling over to Nevuchadnezzar what he saw, Nevuchadnezzar is experiencing this vision at that moment again. So as Daniel is relaying to Nevuchadnezzar what he saw, Nevuchadnezzar in his mind's eye is seeing that vision. Va'alu, and it arose. It went up. Tselem Chad, one image, Sagi, that is vast, that is large. Salma Dikain, This image, this image that you're seeing now, in other words, not what you saw. He's seeing it now at the moment. Sama Dikain. This image. Rav, it is great. V'zive yatir, its light, its eminence, its splendor is immense. Much. Kaim lekavach, it's standing up opposite you. V'reve dechil, and its image, its tayar, is awesome. So basically, what did Nevuchadnezzar see? A big monster. An image that was tremendous. It emanated brilliance and light. Its splendor was great, and it was dreaded. It was dreadful. It was fearful.
He had a big foot.
A dragon?
Oh, we'll see what it looks like. What did it look like? Listen to this, Rabbi say. Hu Tzalma, and we're going to learn that what Nevuchadnezzar is seeing is what is going to be after him, and that is what? The Daled Malchiyos, the four kingdoms. The four kingdoms. So what Nebuchadnezzar saw in this one monster is this one monster alludes to all four kingdoms, because the monster has four parts. Hu Tzalma.
What about the actress Yomaya?
We'll see. Hu Tzalma. This image, Reishe di Dahav Tav. Its head was fine gold. Now, in Aramaic, the Zayin and the Ches could be interchangeable. Chadohi. What's Chadohi? The Ches and the Shin are interchangeable, right? Chadohi. Chadohi means the Chaza, right? The Dalet and the Zayin, like in Masechta Bava Metzia, you have Machnashda Devei Dari, Machnashda Devei Zari. Dalet and Zayin are interchangeable. So Chadohi is Chazohi, the chest, the breast, right? So the head was gold, the breast Udraohi, and the Zera, the arm, the Kasaf was silver. Me'ohi, V'yarchase, the belly, and the top part of the thigh, Dinachash, was copper. Shakohi, the leg, the farzel, the pei and the base are interchangeable, or iron. Raglohi, and the foot, minahain di farzel, uminahain di chasaf. Part of it was iron, part of it was clay. Got it? The image that Nebuchadnezzar saw was a monster. It had a head of gold. It had a chest and arms of silver. It had a belly, and the top of the thigh was copper. And the leg was iron, and the bottom of the feet was partially iron and partially earthenware. Rabbi say, what are the four kingdoms? The first kingdom is?
Kingdom of heaven.
Yavam.
The ones who destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. Bavel. Headed by Nebuchadnezzar himself. The first Malchus is Bavel. The second Malchus, who took over the Babylonian Empire? Madai and Paras, right?
Persia and Media.
Persia and Media. Or actually Media and Persia first. Media and then Persia. So the second empire are Paras, let's say. Achashverosh. Right? So the Persians took over from the Babylonians. Who took over from the Persians? The Greeks, Yavan.
Okay.
And who are the fourth empire? Simply put, the fourth empire, according to the Rambam, according to the Ramban, according to most authorities, according to the Abarbanel, it's Rome. What happened to the Arab Empire?
It's part of Rome.
Ottoman?
Arabs.
They say it's part of
Right? We know there are four empires. There are the Babylonians, there are the Persians, there are the Greeks, and then there's Rome. What about the Arabs? What, there are not enough Arabs? They don't qualify?
The Ottoman Empire.
There are only, according to Chazal, according to the Torah, there are only four recognized empires. What about the Arabs?
They don't have a land. They don't have
then. They don't count now.
They don't have a land.
They don't have a land.
They don't belong anywhere. They're just
nomads.
roam
They're
around.
nomads.
They're part of other.
So the Maharal asks this question, what about the Arabs? What happened to the Arabs? The Maharal explains a very important concept. And that is, what does it mean to be a Malchus? How do you, to get an ID card, to get an official ID, I am a Malchus, what criteria do you have to meet? So the Maharal says the definition of a Malchus is, you're taking away from the glory of the Jewish people. You are taking away from the glory of God. You're diminishing Hashem's glory. So when Bavel destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, the majesty of Klal Yisrael was taken by Bavel. It was their successors, the Persians, they inherited the glory that the Goyim took from us. The Greeks inherited that glory. The Romans inherited that glory. But the Arabs do not inherit the glory of the Jewish people and God. They have their own independent source of majesty. And what is that? The tefillah of Avraham Avinu, Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. When Avraham prayed, if only Yishmael can live before you, from there Yishmael inherited their own independent source. So the reason why they're not considered a Malchus is they do not take their Melucha from Klal Yisrael. Right? We know, La'asad Lavai, what's going to happen? Va'alu Moshiach Behar Tzion, Lishbait Es Har Esav, we're going to judge Edom, and the Melucha, V'haisa Lashem HaMelucha, we're going to take the Melucha back. But says the Maharal, Yishmael did not take the Melucha of Klal Yisrael, they have their own independent source of Melucha. Or, as the Maharal says, and as the Maharal prefers to say, the reason why the Arabs are not considered their own Melucha is because they are part of a different Melucha. Which one would you say? Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans.
Romans.
So the Abarbanel says, no, the Arabs, they just in a continuation of Christianity, because of Christianity's influence
That's how they came about.
on Islam.
That's how they came about. Through Christianity.
Islam considers them apostates, infidels.
No, but they're...
Yeah, but they
their
came
Bible is
about.
part of, is like a precursor to theirs. So they have a sequence there.
They're more cousins to us than they are to the Christians.
That's the Arabs, not necessarily the Muslims. We're talking
Oh,
about
you're talking about Arabs or Muslims?
Muslims.
Both. Well, the Arabs are definitely not an empire as an ethnicity, but as a religion.
Even though they want to destroy the Jews, the fact that they want to destroy the Jews doesn't affect the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
They don't. They haven't. They haven't usurped our glory. They have their own independent source. That's the first answer. The second answer is the following: the Abarbanel says they are just an offshoot of Christianity, of Rome, but the Maharal actually says an amazing thing, and that is the Arab world is part of Persia. They're part of Malchus Paras. Why? But they're a different ethnicity. So Maharal says that being an empire is not a matter of ethnicity, it's a matter of behavior. And the same way we find in Shas that the main feature of Paras was to wage war. The Romans made marketplaces and bathhouses and bridges. The Persians, it says they conquered and they waged war. That is the main feature of the Arab world, and therefore they share that in common with Paras, and therefore they're part of the Persian Empire. That is the approach of the Maharal. The Ramban just says very simply, based on what we said earlier, the Ramban in his commentary to, I believe, Sefer Eov, the Ramban says that, again, how do you define an empire? Someone who takes away their Yerusha, takes their power from the Jewish people. So basically, the Babylonians destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, the Ramban explains the definition of a Melucha are those enemies that have put us into Galus. So the Romans put us into Galus, the Persians succeeded them, the Greeks succeeded them, the Romans succeeded them. But the Arabs never succeeded the Roman world. They developed independently of them. They never succeeded their power. They developed on the other side of the world. Their rise to power in no way exiled us. We had already been cast into exile from the Romans. So therefore, Because as the Ramban says,
we couldn't return because of the Ottomans control.
that could be,
area.
but says the Ramban, we don't count the Chinese. Why aren't the Chinese an empire? Right? There are not enough of them? There are a billion Chinese. The Indians, there are a billion of them. The answer is because their existence did not affect the exile of the Jewish people. In other words, the Babylonians cast us into exile, and their successors continue that, but we don't say conceptually the Arab world inherited the power of the Romans. Now, I want to point out another very interesting thing. Nebuchadnezzar saw this monster. The head was gold. Which empire is represented by the head of gold? Which empire is represented by the arms of silver? Which empire is represented by the copper the copper belly? The copper thighs. And which empire is represented by the iron legs? And why specifically?
Feet, they're not mentioned at all.
The feet are partially iron, partially earthenware. Yeah, so
That's part of two of these.
those are the extreme. According to some, it's very interesting. The last empire, right? The last empire, which has iron legs. So in the beginning, it's only Rome, and then Rome branches off into iron and earthenware. Branches off into who?
Mitzudas David brings such a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's right here, but he says it in one place.
Okay. By the way, I just want to point out one more thing, that the Ibn Ezra argues with what we said earlier, and the Ibn Ezra feels that Rome is not the fourth empire. The fourth empire is Yishmael. And Rome is part of Greece. Why? Because we know that one of the descendants of... we know Rome is called the Kittim, and the Kittim are the children of Yavan. Right? In Bereshit.
Yeah, some people refer to it as the Greco-Roman Empire.
The Greco-Roman Empire. So the Ibn Ezra feels that they're part of Greece and Rome is one, and the fourth is Yishmael. But I want to point out something very interesting. I saw this morning in the Maral, in the Sefer Ner Mitzvah on Chanukah. Babel is compared to gold. Persia and Media is compared to silver. Greece is compared to copper. Rome is compared to iron. Why those four metals? And also later on, Daniel has a vision where he sees the four empires represented by four animals. Babel is represented by a lion. Paras Amada is represented by a bear. Greece is represented by a leopard. And Rome is represented by some, ugly monster. So why? So
By the Romans, I read it somewhere. Why they were so strong? Because up until that time they didn't have iron weaponry. And the Romans had the iron weaponry. They made weapons from copper, and it bent. The Romans had steel, and it didn't bend. And that's why they were conquering everybody.
Right. The Gemara says iron is so strong, even if it's a koshehu, even if it's a tiny bit, yachal lahamis, it could kill. Even a little, even a paper clip could. The Gemara says, afilu koshehu, you're considered a roitzeach. So the Maral says like this: the main feature of Bavel was chashivas. Their feature was they were the most important empire. Nevuchadnezzar prided himself that he was the ruler, the greatest one, kavod, chashivas. He is represented by which metal? Gold. Gold is obviously the most important, valuable, and chashav. Which animal is he represented by? The lion. The lion is, right, king of the jungle, king of the forest. By the way, the lion also had wings of a eagle. Why eagle? Eagle is the king of the birds. So that's the feature of Bavel. Bavel is distinguished in their chashivas, in their importance. How about the Persians? What do you say the Persian distinguishing feature is? The Gemara says that Persians are compared to a bear. Why a bear? Because of all the animals, the bear is the fattest. It's a fat animal. The Gemara says Persians, they eat like a bear, they sleep like a bear, they have tashmish hamita like a bear. What are Persians interested in? Food, money, women. pleasure. They're represented by which animal? The bear. The bear likes to eat. The bear likes to sleep. The bear likes to procreate. Of all the animals, it's known for those three things. And which metal is Persia compared to?
Silver.
Silver. Kesef. Oh, you have kesef. Like it's money. Money. Show me the cash. That's why in the Megillah, what is Achashverosh interested in? Three things. Eating, women, and collecting taxes. He's a Persian.
Yeah, but he turned down 10,000 talents of
No, he accepted it.
silver from Haman, right?
No,
says, keep the money. He says, do with the Jews as you want.
Yeah. But at the end, he's extending tax, the whole Megillah. He puts the end of the taxes, he collects the taxes.
Mordechai put the tax on these.
No. So what was Achashverosh interested in? He's a bear. He's a dive. Why? He eats, right? That's the beginning of it. He has beauty contests, and he collects money. Okay. How about the Greeks? What animal are the Greeks compared to? And what metal? The leopard. What do we know in Perek Avos about the leopard?
Very stealthy.
Have, what kinamer?
Fast.
No.
Havi Az.
Have rotz katzvi?
Mechutzef. Az.
Have az kanomer?
Chutzpah.
Az is he's bold.
Bold.
Bold, right? Chutzpah. What about nechoshes, copper? What do we use copper to represent? Nechosh, a meitzach nechoshes, a copper forehead. What does copper forehead mean? Brazen, right? We say a zoina has a copper forehead. She's a chutzpah. She has no modesty. Of all the umais, which one is the most bold? What do you need boldness for? Ein habaishan lamed. In order to learn Torah, in order to acquire chachma, in order to acquire wisdom, you need to be bold. You can't be shy. You can't be embarrassed. You have to pursue it at all costs. That is why Greece, of all the nations, they were the nation most interested in chachma. Of all the nations, which nation wanted to translate the Torah? Greece. Which nation wanted to be mevatel Torah mitzvahs lahashkicham Torah secha? Greece. Why? Because you can only be jealous if you're in the same parsha. A bear who's interested in eating and drinking, a Persian, he's not jealous of the Torah. What shaykhus does he have to the Torah? But it says Maral, Greece, who specialize in chachma, right? Of all the languages, the only language you're allowed to translate Torah into Greece. Greece, yafta lekim liyefes. Greece has a certain element of chachma that is recognized by the Torah. So that's why they're compared to what? The leopard.
The
Philosopher.
Aristotle.
Right. Right. They were the most... What?
Yeah, they had Chachma.
They had chachma. The Greeks had chachma. And they, of all the nations, they wanted to be mevatel our chachma. Right? So that's why they compared to the leopard and to copper. How about Rome? What's Rome's distinguishing feature?
Might.
Murderers. They're murderers. They're murderers.
Construction.
They murder. They're reitzchem. That's it. That's all they are. Esav and Rome, they're murderers. They want to kill Jews. Crusades, Holocaust. Barzel. Barzel is, that which is used to kill. So it's very, it's amazing. The Maral sees that it's not just four metals that, gold, silver, copper. I know, each metal really uptiches, really defines the characteristic of the four nations.
The Muslims want to kill Jews too. It's an axiom, it's a principle in their teaching.
So according to Ibn Ezra, that they're the fourth Malchus, so iron would also be appropriate for them.
I saw just a
I
quotation.
hasn't heard YouTube.
I saw a quotation just from
Arab
the
scholar.
Quran. They praised Israel.
Yes.
Israel, they're considered apostates.
So
Jews are
they praised
apostates.
Israel,
And
then I want to
it's
Israel is a holy
to get
nation.
rid of the apostates.
Yeah.
Everybody who's not a Muslim is a apostate. They're all infidels, not just Israel.
Okay.
Christians and Jews especially.
Yeah. Let's continue. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Taliban is for Confucian eyes. Anyone who's not a Muslim.
Okay. Let's see. Pasuk Lamed Hey. Lamed Dalet. Chazei Havesa, and you saw or you see presently. Adi his gezeres even, that a stone is yun dila vidayin, without hands. Okay, in other words, and now you see that a stone is being yun from cut out. When you take out a stone from a mountain, you
View it.
hew it.
View it. H-E-W.
You H-E-W it. Not W-D. H-E-W. You cut out a stone, but diloi vidayin, without hands. In other words, Nevuchadnezzar saw in his vision a stone was hewn from the mountain, umecha letsalma, and it...
What does it mean without hands? That Nebuchadnezzar cut it out without hands?
No, he saw that it was being removed from the mountain, but
without hands. No one was doing
it. Umechas letsalma, and it strikes the image al raglohi, on the feet. Very interesting. In other words, you know when the 4 nations will come to an end? But not Bavel, not Parsha, not Yavan, not the end of the Roman Empire. The feet. The farzala, which are of iron, v'chaspa, and earthenware, v'hadekes himoin, and will crush them. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar ultimately sees the destruction of the Daled Malchios. Beidayin, at that point, when the 4th Malchus is crushed, Daku, Kachada, it is crushed all at once. All the Malchios, Parzala, the iron, Chaspa, the earthenware, Nechasha, the copper, Kaspa, the silver, V'dava, the gold. The Hava, it will be Ke'ur min idre kayet, like the chaff. Rashi says Kemoitz, like the chaff. The 4 Malchios will be like the chaff of the summer threshing floor. In other words, what happens to the chaff on the summer threshing floor?
Blows away.
Benasa himoin rucha, the wind will carry it away. B'chal asar lo hishtachach lahain, without any remnant. In other words, one day, there will be no vestige of memory of the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. The avnan, but the stone, the mechas l'tzalma, that struck down the image, havas l'torav, will turn into a great mountain. Umilas kalara, and fill the world. Beautiful nevuah. That, right?
Has to become true. Has to come.
Look, we've seen the fruition of 90% of it already, right? We're just waiting for that final pasuk lamed hey. Dinah chelma, says Daniel, this is your dream. Upishrei. And the interpretation, Neymar, we will say, Kada Malka, before the king. So Daniel says, that's your vision. Now I'm going to tell you the interpretation. Ant Malka, you king. Melech Machaya, the king of kings.
Really gives him that kind of an appellation.
Now Chazal have interpreted that whenever it says Melech Machaya and Daniel, it refers to a king of Basar V'Dam, except for this one. He says, you king! He points to Nebuchadnezzar. Then he turns to Hashem. The king of kings, the Elokah Shemaya, which is the God of heavens, Malchusa Chisna, a strong Malchus, the Sakfa, and a mighty Malchus, the Kara, and honor Yehavlach, he has given you. That's the step 1. Daniel says, God has given you tremendous power. Pasuk Lamed Ches. Uv'chol di doirin. And wherever there lives, B'nei Anosha, men, Chevas bara, animals, V'oiv Shemaya, and birds, Yehav Bidach, he gave it all to you.
We can make a good Zemer out of this.
Yeah. In other words, you have it all, Nevuchadnezzar. You rule over men, you rule over animals, you rule over birds. Yehav Bidach, it's all in your hands. V'hashletach b'chalhan, you rule over all of it. Antu Reisha Didava, you are the head of gold. The head of gold that you saw in the vision, that's you, Nebuchadnezzar. That's why there's no dispute about the first Malchus. Everyone agrees. It's Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel tells him exactly who he is. But Uvasrach, but after you, Tekum Malchu Achari, another kingdom will rise up. Araminach. Inferior to you. Rashi says, after you and Belshazzar, your son, will be an inferior Melucha.
What means inferior?
Lesser, lower.
Weaker.
Inferior. Yeah? Ara, Rashi says, Tachtana Nemucha. Like everyone knows, silver is inferior to gold. And one's chest is lower down than their head.
In what way is silver inferior to gold? Because it's less precious?
Less value.
Well, why is it less valuable?
Some people will say if you invested in silver in the last few years, you did better than gold. But I mean, it's more, it's not as gold is less available.
It's less available. It's more difficult to purify, and from time immemorial, gold is always more valuable.
Yeah. Rabbi Lenin said.
Who?
Lenin.
Who?
Lenin.
I've never heard of him.
Anyway, he said, when we will build up communism, we'll make our toilets from gold. He said, why will we make our toilets from gold? To put to shame that metal, that through ages people spilled their blood for this shiny metal. You have to come to it. It has to come to it. That's what he said.
Now, yeah. Interesting. Okay. And it says, Uvasrach to come Malchu Achari. After you will come another Malchus Ara Minach, inferior to you, Umalchus Silisai, and a third Malchus Achari. After that, Dina Chasha, which is copper, the Sishlat B'chal Ara that will rule over the whole world. Umalchu Revi'ah Teheve Sakifa Kefarzala. The fourth Malchus will be mighty like iron. Kal Kavel. Just like...
They didn't have iron at that time. What did they know about iron?
How do you know they didn't have iron?
Because he said the Romans made weapons out of iron. So they
Steel, not iron. They made out of
steel was made out of iron.
Yeah, but they had iron, they didn't have steel.
Look, they had iron in the Chumash. The Chumash talks about Barzal, right? Yeah. Kal Kavel di Farzla Mahadik, just like iron, crushes the chashel and shatters. Chashel means like you could use iron to flatten any metal, right? You could be meraded in Hebrew, right? You could use iron to flatten into trays, even gold. Kaila, it could flatten everything. Uchefarzala, and like iron, di mira'a kalilain, that destroys everything, that renders everything nothing. Tadik v'seiraya, the fourth malchus, frightening nevuah, the fourth malchus will shatter and crush. One more pasuk. V'di chazaisa, and that which you saw, raglaya, the feet, the etzbe'asa, and the toes, the fingers, minahin chasaf, di fechar. Part of it was the earthenware of the craftsmith, of the yotzer, right? The pachar. So what's going to happen? Uminahin in part.
Who's the yotzer?
Rashi. Yotzer mean the
image?
No, the potter. The fashioner.
What is the fashioner?
No, it's the clay of the fashioner. The one who makes the pot. Chasaf difecha. Uminahin parzon. Some of it will be iron. Malchu feliga to have it. It will be a split malchus. Umin nitzbisa difarzala leheviba. Even the weak part will be strong. Kal kavel di chazesa, because of what you saw. Parzala, the iron, me'arav, bachasaf, tina. Rashi says, Kal kavel di chazesa, kal umas, shara'isa. Whatever you've seen, barzel me'urav, becharsis hatit, is iron mixed with the cement clay. Okay, we'll try to explain that more, Mirz Hashem, next time. Okay, shkaya.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.